Good afternoon, our dear iSITE student members and faculty advisors. Welcome to our fifth iSITE webinar series. We will fill your Saturdays with informative and substantial updates on the latest and emerging topics in ICT and research. Thank you for rising up to the challenges of this new academic landscape. Today, we have an interesting webinar on data privacy awareness for academic setting. Most of the time, we are sharing our personal data and information. The question now is, how are we going to protect them? I am Dr. Luisa Makatangay, the iSight Treasurer, and your host for today's webinar. Before we continue, let me remind you of our privacy policy. By participating in our iSight webinar series, you consent us to capture, record, process data you share directly and indirectly on these events. To ensure the smooth flow of our webinar, please be guided by the following. This session will be recorded for documentation purposes. For best user experience, use Google Chrome browser for desktop and Zoom app for mobile. Only the speaker's microphone and video camera shall be turned on. For those in the Zoom account, use our chat box for your questions. Those in FB Live, please type your questions in the comment section. It will be read later by yours truly during the Q&A. At the end of this webinar, we hope that our faculty and student attendees could apply the knowledge and concepts they gained in the webinar in the data privacy awareness for academic setting. To our dear participants, at the end of the webinar, a link to the evaluation or feedback form will be posted and you must fill them out to receive your e-certificate. Please write your name correctly. Thank you. Moving on, to give her opening remarks, may we hear it from the President herself, Dr. Rosalie Bialday from LPU Batangas.
Good afternoon, everyone. In behalf of all officers and board members of iSITE, we warmly welcome all attendees in our free webinar series, not only for student members, but also for the faculty advisors. With IT and computing fields as broad areas and very fast changing, iSITE is serious in its objective of keeping all the members updated with the fast-changing technologies. That is why, as you can observe, all the officers and board members are the speakers in our webinar series to share our expertise in the respective fields that they are assigned to share. Hope that we will be able to continue the efforts for the coming months while the educational sector suffer much in the online delivery of instruction while there is no face-to-face classes. But as the saying goes, that in every difficulty, there are opportunities, we can now share the expertise regardless of your geographical location, as long as internet connections is good in your respective places. As such, we are excited to announce, as previously posted in the iSITE FB page last weekend, the board agrees that we will be accepting members from all over the country as long as they are students of the IT and computing courses of any college, school, and universities in the Philippines. This way, students can avail all free webinar series that will be coming at a very minimal cost as free memberships were given to students of Region 4. Also, one of the most exciting part is the forthcoming IT skills competition that will happen this coming March 18, 2021, which will be conducted virtually. All details will be posted in the FB page. For this afternoon, let us learn from one of the DPO certified professionals, not only from iSITE, but also from PSITE, the Philippine Society of IT Educators. Let us learn from our speaker, Dr. Melo Abante, who will be properly introduced later. I will also take the opportunity to acknowledge efforts of each and every officer of iSITE, as well as the unbounded support of our Region 4 Education Supervisor, Sir Lupel Gueta. With this, good afternoon again, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Rosalie B. Alday. It is indeed our honor and pride that we are given full support by our CHED Region 4A Supervisor and Advisor of iSITE to inspire us this afternoon. May I call on camera for his inspirational message, no other than Engineer Lupel B. Gueta. Please give him a virtual round of applause. Thank you, Sir Lupel, for your untiring support to iSITE. The highlights of this afternoon's webinar is our fifth talk on a topic entitled Data Privacy Awareness for Academic Setting. I will now introduce our speaker. Our speaker is currently the Dean of the Graduate School and the College of Information Technology Education at World City Colleges, Quezon City, and Antipolo, Rizal. Doc Melo, as what his friends call him, is an educator by heart. He graduated with 3 bachelor degrees in ITE, BSIT, BSCS, BSCPE, and Management, BSTM. 3 master's degrees, MIT, MA Math, MBA. 3 doctorate degrees, PhD-IT, EDD, DBA. And in addition, ongoing Juris Doctor studies. His passion for teaching and sharing his skills and experiences produced thousands of graduates over the years. He believes that it is through solid education that our economy and our country would level up to the world's best. Thus, when he teaches, he gives his whole dedication and focus with the goal of producing globally competitive next generation of skilled professionals. He is known by his colleagues to be a very hard-working professor, dean, business partner, and school administrator. He has written several IT books used by several colleges and universities nationwide. An international speaker, he gets frequent invitations to share his knowledge in various countries as a resource speaker on topics about education, data privacy, management, and IT. A great mentor and a coach, Melo has definitely helped shape the lives of some students and teachers, guiding them to achieve more successes in life. Melo, despite his busy schedule, finds time to further serve the country through BPS TC 60, where he was recently re-elected as the chairman of SC2 on IT for learning, education, and training. Active officers and members of different IT and business organizations such as PSITE, iSITE, ACM, IEEE, ICPEP, CODEM, and a lot more. He is also an accreditor, assessor, and evaluator in different accrediting bodies such as PCAB, PQA, PQC, ISO, ARQUAT, NBC, and others. Despite his busy schedule, Doc Melo still knows how to balance his life. He is a generous, supportive, and loving husband to his wife, Aubrey. He firmly believes that all his blessings came from the Lord or came from God, and because of this, he always has time to serve as lector, commentator in St. Arnold Johnson Shrine Parish and Blessed Sacrament Parish from 2008 to present. He finished his comprehensive training as Data Privacy Officer from iSITE National and obtained his certification from the said organization. Let us all welcome our speaker for today, Dr. Marmelo V. Apante. Please give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you very much to your warm introduction, Dr. Luisa Makatangay. I feel tremendously honored to deliver my talk this afternoon. To our CHED Supervisor, Engineer Lupel Gueta, iSITE Board, faculty, students, and guests, good afternoon. So now let me share my presentation. Good day, everyone. So my topic for today is about the Data Privacy Act of 2012, its compliance and implementation in online education, the data privacy in teaching. So I just want to thank Dr. Mary Joy Abweg for the help of this with this presentation. So RA 10173 or the Data Privacy Act of 2012 protects an individuals from unauthorized processing of personal information that is private, not publicly available, and identifiable where the identity of the individual is apparent either through direct attribution or when put together with other available information. So, as what we have here, the amount of data collected in the internet in 60 seconds. So, in one minute, no, 3.5 million searches are performed on Google, 900,000 users log into Facebook, and 4.1 million videos on YouTube. But that's not all. In just 60 seconds, you spend $751.22 online, download 342,000 apps, and send 452,000 tweets in 60 seconds. Surprise? There's even more. So, the United States leads other countries with almost 85% of identifies stolen worldwide. While population size explains this amount, the United States' strengthened data breach reporting requirements suggest that the identity theft count in other countries may be underreported. Despite their smaller population, countries like South Korea and Canada are among the most hacked. According to Semantic, these countries were affected by mega breaches affecting more than 10 million identities. So for example, the Daily Motion breach in France exposed 85 million identities, almost equal to the total data records stolen for the whole year. We also see other smaller countries like Sweden and the Netherlands size much larger proportionately. These geographic views reveal that dense populations in first world power are not the sole sources of data breaches. Specific events and laws create gaps between countries, leading to major breaches that steal more data records than the population that exists in some countries. With global data privacy regulations like GDPR and NDB taking place, it's will be interesting to see how data breaches continue to impact the world. So, breaches and cases in the Philippines, the academic setting. So, UP Visayas website hack. Okay? Manila Bulletin written, no? Hackers took over the University of the Philippines Visayas website on Thursday, June 11, 2020, leaving a note, website breach by you know who you. The hackers added, "You are endangered the welfare of your students. May this message serve you as a warning." In a Twitter post, UP Visayas said it has temporarily taken down the web server after the website defacement. UP Visayas has temporarily taken down the web server after the defacement of the UPB website. The technical team is now doing a security audit of all UP Visayas system and is taking the necessary steps to ensure that no further harm will be done. The technical team is now doing a security audit of all their systems and is taking the necessary steps to ensure that no further harm will do, the university added. Scoutmag.ph hashtag mass promotion now has been students' rallying cry on Twitter lately. Due to academic institution relying on online classes, students are having a difficult time adjusting to the new normal, especially students without internet access readily available to them. Some students go to Twitter to voice out their concern, but 4 students from Bicol University took on an unusual protest instead. On April 27, Bicol University's official website got hacked. All of this trouble in the name of voicing out why online classes would not benefit the entire student body. The homepage of the official website of Bicol University has been hacked by an anonymous group in relation to AO number 91, series of 2020. Writes the Bicol Universitarian, the guidelines released on April 26 state that classes will resume on May 2 via remote teaching and learning or distance education strategies as the semester will end on May 20, 2020. Manila update. ABS-CBN News mentioned that the Polytechnic University of the Philippines and Far Eastern University said Thursday the respective student portals were hacked in the latest cyber attacks on tertiary education institutions in less than a month. In a statement, the PUP Information and Communication Technology Office said it had conducted an initial investigation after reports surfaced the university's student information system was hacked. The PUP ICTO has determined the extent of the data breach and has already advised the members of the PUP community on what to do to protect their individual SIS account. The PUP ICTO said, initial investigation reveals that no sensitive users' information was compromised in this incident. It said, the PUP ICTO said it would strengthen the safety features of the student portal. The office added it would submit the findings of each investigation to the Department of Information and Communication Technology and to the National Privacy Commission. Meanwhile, FEU apologized at its confirmed an intrusion in the student portal of its Manila campus. They mentioned, "We assure you that this incident is being taken seriously. The student portal is temporarily unavailable as we assess the situation and implement corrective measures before making it accessible," FEU said in a statement. FEU advised each student to reset the password of their Microsoft Office 365 accounts. So almost 30 Philippine schools hacked just this June. Cybercriminals have been hard at work in the past few months. It's not just small, being at the startup at risk, schooling just as much risk. So here is the list of 30 Philippine schools hacked. Okay? So Access, San Beda, University of Philippine Visayas, Far Eastern University, SNU, TAU, University of St. Lasal, ICCT colleges, AMA universities, and a lot more. Now, when we are securing our own, of course, the World City Colleges, as you can see here in our URL address, that is https www.worldcity.edu.ph. Okay, how does HTTPS work? HTTPS uses an encryption protocol to encrypt communications. The protocol is called Transport Layer Security, although formerly it was known as Secure Sockets Layer. This protocol secures communication by using what's known as an asymmetric public key infrastructure. This type of security system uses two different keys to encrypt communication between two parties. Number one, the private key. This key is controlled by the owner of a website and it's kept as the reader may have speculated private. This key lives on a web server and is used to decrypt information encrypted by the public key. Number two, the public key. This key is available to everyone who wants to interact with the server in a way that's secure. Information that's encrypted by the public key can only be decrypted by the private key. So, why is HTTPS important? What happens if a website doesn't have HTTPS? HTTPS prevents websites from having their information broadcast in a way that's easily viewed by anyone snooping on the network. When information is sent over regular HTTP, the information is broken into packets of data that can be easily sniped using free software. This makes communication over an unsecure medium such as public Wi-Fi highly vulnerable to interception. In fact, all communications that occur over HTTP occur in plain text, making them highly accessible to anyone with the correct tools and vulnerable to on-path attacks. With HTTPS, traffic is encrypted such that even if the packets are snipped or otherwise intercepted, they will come across as nonsensical characters. Okay, education in home and Philippine Star. Government agencies schools summon over data breach. So, Commissioner Liboro affirmed that the NPC would continue to focus on the education sector, makes up 17% of the breaches received in the first half of the year, coming from the privacy.gov.ph. So, what is the Data Privacy Act of 2012? So, Section 1, a short title, this act shall be known as the Data Privacy Act of 2012. Republic Act 10173, the Data Privacy Act of 2012, an act protecting individual personal information in information and communication systems in the government and the private sector, creating for this purpose a National Privacy Commission and for other purposes. So the National Privacy Commission is a body that is mandated to administer and implement this law. So the functions of the NPC include rulemaking, advisory, public education, compliance and monitoring, investigation and complaints, and enforcement. The scope of the DPA or Data Privacy Act. The Data Privacy Act applies to the processing of all types of personal information and to any natural and juridical person in the country and even abroad, subject to certain qualifications. The Data Privacy Act is broadly applicable to individuals and legal entities that process personal information with some exemption. The law has extraterritorial application, applying not only to business with offices in the Philippines, but when equipment based in the Philippines is used for processing. Timeline of DPA law and other issuance past organizations compliance. So as you can see here, Data Privacy Act passed into law 2012. National Privacy Commission was formed in March 2016. Implementing rules and regulations was published on August 2016. Then 12 months after, from September 9, 2016 to 2017, IRR came into effect and deadline of DPO registration. In March 8, 2018, deadline for annual registration of the DPS. Then June 30, 2018, deadline of annual security incident reports. The registration requirement, all personal data processing system operating in the Philippines that involve personal data concerning at least 1,000 individuals or persons records must be registered with National Privacy Commission. Again, concerning at least 1,000 individual or persons record, it must be registered with National Privacy Commission. Key rules in the Data Privacy Act. So as I mentioned earlier, data subjects. It refers to an individual whose sensitive personal or privileged information is processed personal. PIC or Personal Information Controller. It controls the processing of personal data or instruct another to process personal data on its behalf. Another key roles of PIP, organization or individual whom a personal information controller may outsource or instruct the processing of personal data pertaining to a data subject. Data Protection Officer or the DPO. He or she responsible for the overall management of compliance to Data Privacy Act. And the National Privacy Commission, independent body mandated to administer and implement the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and to monitor and ensure with international standards set to personal data protection. Okay, data subject, as I mentioned, an individual whose personal, sensitive personal or privileged information is processed. The privacy administrator and implementer of the act, so to monitor and ensure compliance of the country with international standard set for data protection, key functions include rulemaking, advisory, public education, compliance monitoring, investigation and complaints, and enforcement. The PIC and PIP, of course, has custody and control so the processing of personal of data subjects and contracts with data subjects. Then the personal information processor, to whom personal information's controllers outsource of the processing of personal data of each data subjects, has no direct contact with the data subjects. Data subjects in academic setting, for example, in World City Colleges. Okay, of course, student. One of the example of a data subjects is the student. Teaching and non-teaching personnel, even job order, contractual or probationary or regular. Parents and guardians, applicant, student or employee, administrator, board of trustees, visitors, even visitors, guest, website or walk-in, contact person like contractors, OJT partners, suppliers, academic linkages, and industry partners. Even the consultants, exchange students and professors, research subjects as respondents, and community extension participants. So they are the one who consider as data subjects. So per personal information controller, so of course we have university and college as a PIC, professional organization, which is SEC registered. For example, if we have alumni organizations, which is SEC registered, a company, of course, the process owner, registrar, human resource, and MIS head. So the data controller responsibility, you are the data controller if your company or organization, if you decide to collect the personal information of your customers, site visitors, and other targets. You must have legal authority to do so. So what to collect? To change, modify the data that you get, where and how to use the data and towards what purpose, Whether to keep the data in-house in the third parties, you are also figured whom to share the data with and how long the data is kept and when the data dispose of it. Okay, so PIP. So the Personal Information Processor. Government agencies for legal mandate to process like CHED, TESDA, DepEd, GSIS and SSS, BIR, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth, and others. Accrediting auditing agencies like ISO, PACOCOA, ALCOCOA, and many more. Payroll bank depository, third-party academic service providers like travel and tours, learning management system, outsourced service, insurance companies, Google in online platform. The data processor responsibilities. A data processor is the one who carries out the actual processing of the data under the specific instruction of the data controller. You are the data processor if you are instructed or tasked by a data controller to perform such of the following. You are assigned or to design, create, and implement IT processes and systems that would enable the data controller to gather personal data. Use tools and strategies to gather personal data. Implement security measures that would safeguard personal data. Store personal data gathered by the data controller. And transfer data from the data controller to another organization and vice versa. So, if you wanted to know the details about the right of the data subjects or rights of the data subject, so of course, we need to consider the right to be informed. That is IRR section 34.A. Right to object. So if you don't want to give some data or information for some reason, that is under IRR section 34.B. Right to access, of course, right to access your records and so on. IRR section 34.C. Right to data portability, IRR section 36. Right to correct or rectification, IRR section 34.D. Right to file a complaint. You have a right to complain, IRR section 34.A.2. Right to damages, IRR section 34.F. And right to erasure or blocking, IRR section 35. And transmissibility of rights, IRR section 35. So, the right to be informed. The data subject has right to be informed whether personal data pertaining to him or her will be are being or were processed. The data subject should be notified and furnished with the following information before the entry of his or her personal data into the processing system or at the next practical opportunity. So, description of the personal data to be entered in the system, purposes of which they are being or will be processed, including processing for direct marketing, profiling, or historical, statistical, or scientific purposes. So, for example, they will use your information about your former school in high school for marketing purposes. Okay, you need to you have the right to be informed first, and they need your approval. Basis of processing: when processing is not based on the consent of the data subject. Scope and method of the personal data processing. The recipients of classes of recipient to whom the personal data are or may be disclosed. Method utilizing for automated access and others. Okay, the right to object. The data subject has the right to object to the processing of his or her personal data, including processing for direct marketing, automated processing, or profiling. He or she should be given an opportunity to withhold consent in case of any amendment to the information supplied to the data subjects under the right to be informed. So, right to access. The data subject is the right to reasonable access to upon depending the following: contents of his or her personal data that were processed, sources from which personal data were obtained, and names and address of recipients of the personal data. The right to erasure or blocking. The data subject has the right to suspend, withdraw, or order the blocking, removal, or extraction of his or her personal data from the personal information controller's filing system. This right may be exercised upon discovery and substantial proof of any of the following. So, example, the personal data is incomplete. The personal data is being used for a purpose not authorized by the data subjects and others. The right to damage. The data subject should be indemnified for any damages sustained due to such false, incomplete, outdated, unlawfully obtained, or organized use of personal data, considering any violation of his or her rights and freedom as a data subject. So, transmissibility of rights of the data subjects and right to data portability. Example of potential breaches and security incidents involving personal information. Of course, bank, they need to have a consent form. Hospital and school records, storage and disposal policy. Student transferred without consent. Clinical records of the student to disclose with her parents, need consent. List of top student or passer, need consent. Cedula in malls, disposal policy improper, disposal. Security issues in buildings, logbook. So for example, if you visited some universities and colleges and you are required to input your name, address, contact number, and so on. Use and recycled papers, disposal policy, access due to negligence, hard drive sold online, disposal policy, use of CCTV, privacy issues, use of USB, CD, personal laptop, encryption issues. For access control and security policy, personal records stolen from home of an employee security, and others. Then other violations, Data Privacy Act principles, no data sharing agreement, no privacy notice, no subcontracting agreement, no breach drill, profiling of customer of malls, unjustifiable collection of personal data of a principal or proportionality. Okay, and take note, this will be the potential penalty or penalties listed in the Data Privacy Act. So we have the DPA section 25 to 33, the Punishable Act, unauthorized processing, access due to negligence, improper disposal, unauthorized purposes, intentional breach, concealment of breach, malicious disclosure, unauthorized disclosure, and combination of acts. So this will be the jail terms, and this will be the fine. So as you can see, 1 million. Okay, for combination of acts, 1 to 3 years jail term or imprisonment. So take note of that. Classification of personal data. Personal information refers to any information, whether recorded in a material form or not, from which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained by the entity holding, or when put together with other information would directly and certainly identify an individual. That is personal information. So sensitive personal information refers to personal information about an individual, like race. Your race must be a sensitive personal information. Your ethnic of origin, your marital status, your age, your color, or your religious, your philosophical or political affiliation, your health, your education, your genetics, your sexual life, any proceeding for any offense committed or alleged to have been committed, to disposal of such proceedings, the sentence of any court in such proceedings. Also include information issued by the government agencies peculiar to an individual, which includes but not limited to social security numbers, previous or current health records, licenses, suspension or revocation, and tax return, and specifically established by an executive order, an act of Congress to be kept classified. So this will be an example of personal information. So name, address, place of work, telephone number, your gender, location, IP address, birth date, birthplace, country or citizen, citizenship status, payroll and benefits information, and your contact information. Sensitive personal information, of course, as I mentioned, your race, no, and so on. Ethnic origin, age, education, sexual life, and others. So, privilege information, data received within the context of a protected relationship, husband and wife. Covered this one, race, ethnic origin, marital, age, and color. For data received within the context of protected relationship, attorney and client, so affiliation, religious, philosophical, political. For data received within the context of protected relationship, priest and penitent, of course, covered health, education, genetics, and sexual life. And data received with the context of protected relationship, doctor and patient. So this one. Additional sensitive personal information. So as I mentioned earlier, in addition, of course, websites visited. That is also a sensitive personal information. Materials downloaded. Any other information reflecting references and behavior of an individual. Grievance information, discipline information, leave of absence reason, licenses or its denials, suspension or revocation. So what data do we collect from our data subjects? Okay? So data protection in school is a must. No? Schools work with an incredible amount of personal data. So this includes information such as student names, addresses, medical information, images, and more. Additionally, information related to the job applicants, governors, staff, and volunteer is often stored within a school database. The Data Protection Act was designed to protect the privacy of individuals. When the DPA was updated to the GDPR in May 2018, the regulations around data protection changed throughout Europe. Schools handled what the GDPR classifies as a special category data, detailing student information such as ethnicity, rare biometric data, and trade union membership in some instances. This data is subject to strict controls, and therefore schools need to adhere to GDPR guidelines and protect this information efficiently. So, how social media influence purchase decision? Of course, criteria for lawful processing of personal information. Okay, so they need consent, contract with the individual, vital interest, life and health, legal obligations, national emergency, public order and safety prescribed by law, constitutional or statutory mandate of a public authority, and legitimate interest of PIC or third party. So this will be a quote. I always heard this quote to Dr. Lansigan. Dr. Lansigan explained how important Data Privacy Act is to an agency. Do not protect if you cannot protect. So, he said, and he stated that not to collect data or information that is not absolutely needed by the organization. Dr. Lansigan iterated that each organization have to comply with this law and register to the National Privacy Commission, a body mandated to administer the law, especially those organizations that involve personal data concerning at least 1,000 individual personal records. So, personal data life cycle. So, from acquisition to storage, then use, transfer, then destruction. So, that is RA 9470, National Archives of the Philippine Act of 2007. For more details, Procedure Manual, Title 3 of DAO 92 to 29, Hazardous Waste Management or DNRAO Series of 2004. What are the key considerations when listing your personal data? What personal data do you collect? In what form and through which channels? For what purpose you collect personal data? How it is used? Who is this data shared with internally and externally? Who is the authorized to access this data? Where do you keep your data? How long do you keep your data? And how do you dispose this data? These key considerations is considered within the personal data life cycle. Data privacy principles in the Philippines. Transparency. So the consent regime. A data subject must be aware of the nature, purpose, and extent of the processing of his or her personal data, including the risk and safeguards involved, the identity of personal information controller, his or her rights as a data subject, and how this can be exercised. And information and communication relating to the processing of personal data should be easy to access and understand using clear and plain language. Legitimate purpose. This processing of information shall be compatible with a declared and specified purpose which must not be contrary to law, morals, or public policy. Proportionality. The processing of information shall be adequate, relevant, suitable, necessary, and not excessive in relation to a declared and specified purpose. Personal data shall be able to process only if the purpose of processing could not reasonably be fulfilled by means. So, online learning guidelines issued to help protect student privacy and reduce data breaches in school. So, guidelines contained in the advisory number 2020-1, the Data Privacy Council Education Sector. Okay, stated that the do's and don'ts. So, for a student, for example, the do's for student, creating strong password when signing up on e-learning platforms. Password should be at least 12 characters containing upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and if possible, symbols. Staying alert during online classes, especially when sharing videos, photos, and files. Using customized background to avoid accidental disclosure of personal information. Installing and regularly updating an antivirus program. Muting the microphone and turning off the camera by default, especially when not speaking or reciting. Turning off the microphone and camera when leaving one's station for, say, bathroom breaks. What are the don'ts? Connecting phones, laptops, and other gadgets to free or public Wi-Fi networks. Sharing submission for an unlimited time. Sending assignment, projects, and other requirements to teachers via social media. Taking screenshots of other feed of teachers and classmates. Spamming the chat. Giving out online links and their password to people who should not be in the class. For parents or legal guardians, what are the do's? Helping the child or ward check and customize privacy setting of the device or application for online learning. Teaching them basic online security. Taking a moment to peruse the school's privacy policy. Ensuring that your consent is obtained for the recording of classes and consider being present during this session, especially if the student is a minor. What are the don'ts for the parents and guardian? Leaving the child, especially minors, unsupervised during the conduct of online learners or online learning. For teachers, teachers must always consider the privacy, equity, and peculiarity among students when conducting online classes. So, areas of concern, the guidance listed areas of concern covered by the guidance. These are the use of learning management system and online productivity platforms, other available and official supporting tools for online learning, use of social media, publication of information or files via other means of platforms, storage of personal data, use of webcams and the recording of videos of online discussion, online proctoring, and data security. So better, again, for the student to turn off their camera and turn off their microphone if not necessary to use. Okay, the advisory, among other things, said that an announcement or posting involving personal data such as grades in result assignment must be viewable only by its intended recipients. Okay, so the teachers are not allowed to show all the grades with every student. So downloading of personal data stored in the LMS or OPP should be kept to a minimum and or limited to that which is necessary for online learning. Okay? This will be the related law regulations, guidelines, and circular in memoranda. For photo and video, visit RA 99995. For security, ISO, Information Security Management, Security Techniques, and MIS Server and Officer of Government, the use of updated cryptographic protocols. For blurring of face, Philippine Constitution right to privacy. For disposal of data, RA 9470. For disposal of electronic equipment, Procedure Manual, Title 3 of DAO, 92 to 29 Hazardous Waste Management. And transmitting of data, RA 8792 or E-Commerce Act of 2000. Now, the National Privacy Commission initiate Code of Conduct to guide school amid shift to online education. Okay, so that is on June 28, 2020. So as such, the following are the recommendation of the Commission. Create a data breach response team which will be responsible for creating and implementing an incident response procedure. This will help schools contain the impact of the breach and immediately restore integrity to the information and communication system. Create policies and implement them effectively to prevent or minimize breaches and ensure timely discovery of a security incident. Conduct security audits and tests such as privacy impact assessment, source code audit, vulnerability assessment, and penetration testing, especially when there are changes in conditions that warrant a review of data privacy and security policy. Proactively explore and adopt measures that can help prevent intrusions. This includes investing in secure web application and automated detection system where practicable to their available resources. So, security of personal data in a government agency. Data security means protecting data from destruction and any unwanted or unauthorized action through the implementation of appropriate technical and organizational measures. So the Commission recommends ISO IEC 27018 as the most appropriate certification for the service of function provided by a service for in relation to the data security. So ISO standard for information technology, security techniques, code of practice for protection of personal identifiable information in public clouds acting as PII processor. For security techniques of course, 27018-2019 and ISO IEC 27018 of Code of Practice for Protecting Personal Data in the Cloud. So, general obligation of the government agency engaged in the processing of personal information through its head of agency designate a data protection officer. The school required to conduct a privacy impact assessment for each program, process, or measure within the agency that involves personal data. Create privacy and data protection policies. Conduct an annual mandatory agency-wide training on privacy and data protection policies and similar training during all agency personnel orientation. Register its data processing system with the National Privacy Commission subject to the conditions under the Data Privacy Act, its IRR, and other issuance of the Commission, and cooperate with the Commission when its privacy and data protection policies are subjected to review and assessment in terms of their compliance with the requirements, the Act, its IRR, and all issuance of the Commission. So, the personal data being processed by a government agency shall be stored in a data center which may be or may not owned and controlled by such agency. A data center refers to a centralized repository, physical or virtual, analog or digital, used for the storage, management, and dissemination of data, including personal data. So all personal data that are digitally processed must be encrypted, whether at rest or in transit. The Commission recommends advanced encryption standard with a key size of 256 bits as the most appropriate encryption. Password or passphrases used to access personal data should be at sufficient strength to deter password attack. A password policy should be issued and enforced through a system management tool. Okay, the security requirements for the online access of personal data. Agency or school personnel who access personal data online shall authenticate their identity by a secured encrypted link and must use multi-factor authentication. Their access rights must be defined and controlled by a system management tool or a software system that facilitates the administration of user passwords and access rights. For paper-based filing system, if personal data is stored in paper files or physical media, the government agency shall maintain a log from which it can be ascertained which file was accessed, including when, where, and by whom. Such log shall also include or indicate whether copies of the file were made. Agency management regularly review the log records, including all applicable process. Can a third-party service provider be engaged in the disposal of personal data? Yes. Note, however, that the service provider shall contractually agree to the agency's data protection procedures and ensures that the confidentiality of all personal data is protected. Are there penalties for violations of the provision of NPC Circular Number 2016-1? Upon notice and hearing, violations are subject to compliance and enforcement orders, cease and desist orders, temporary or permanently ban of the processing of personal information, or payment of fines in accordance with a schedule to be published by the Commission. Failure to comply with the provision of the said may be ground for administrative and discrimination sanction against any erring public officer or employee. So what are the National Privacy Commission 5 pillars of compliance? Of course, the Data Privacy Officer, the PIA, the PMP, PDP, and the BRP. This will be the 5 pillars of compliance in National Privacy Commission. So what are the 5 pillars of data privacy, accountability, and compliance? For the pillar, of course, appoint a DPO, conduct a privacy impact assessment, have a privacy management program and codify it into a privacy manual. So the school are required to have a privacy manual. Implement data privacy and protection measures anytime, anywhere. Exercise breach reporting procedures. So if there are certain problems or happens with regards to data privacy issues in concern, the agency are required to exercise breach reporting procedures. So, what are the tips in crafting your privacy notice? A privacy notice aims to empower the public. Okay? It is meant to tell individuals what, how, and why personal data is being collected from them. As such, privacy notices should be highly readable to be usable and effective. However, recent researches reveal that only a few actual read privacy notices. So, with the average privacy notice taking 10 minutes to read, at most 42 minutes, it is no surprise that only 16% of the internet users take the time to read them, based on the Internet Society's Global Internet User Survey. The figure may even be lower in the Philippines, where the concept of data privacy is just emerging. The prompted the National Privacy Commission to compile the following tips on how to effectively craft your privacy notice. It must be easy to read, of course. Privacy notices should be concise and written in a plain language as you write for a diverse audience. A segment of your audience may not be familiar with data privacy. Thus, it is important to communicate the content clearly. So to keep notices brief, you may use a layered approach. So the privacy notice should be the first, shortest, and simplest layer that is intended for consumers. The next layer should be the full privacy policy or the privacy management manual that uses standards, legalized and has all details including the technical information. Hyperlink the term in the notice to a definition. Maximize the second layer to fully explain technical terms mentioned in the privacy notice. The notice should be simple, straightforward, direct, affirmative, and respectful. Use short sentences and active voice which are easier to understand. If you are enumerating several items, use bullet points. Each section of the notice should have an informative headings to accurately describe what follows. Another thing, of course, is that it must be transparent. To reduce legal risk, privacy commitments in your notices should be aligned with your actual privacy practices. Various resources reveal that while notices should try to avoid using bold statements, they should not also be too generic. Notices should cover both current and prospective privacy practices, which necessitates strategic planning involving everyone in organization. The key is to conduct factual and legal due diligence. According to the International Association of Privacy Professionals, factual due diligence allows you to determine what information your organization uses. The legal due diligence allows you to determine what laws govern the use of that information. Conducting a privacy impact assessment may help you achieve due diligence. Compelling. Gaining public trust has been considered a barrier to continued growth among public and private organizations offering products and services. Online consumer spending only accounts for about 1.7% of overall retail revenues due to this barrier, among others. Thus, it is important to maximize the use of privacy notice to increase your trustworthiness among your clients. To make a privacy notice compelling, it should instantly show what is in it for your clients. A minimum, it should highlight the types of personal information you collect, how you use it, how you protect it, how your clients can access and correct their personal information, and how they can contact you. You may use this template to map up and analyze your personal data collection and processing. Some questions goes like this. What does Data Privacy Act say about retention of personal data? So in Chapter 3, Section 11E, General Data Privacy Principle of Data Privacy Act of 2012, personal information must be retained only for as long as necessary for the fulfillment of the purpose for which data was obtained. Okay, so of course, for the fulfillment of the declared, specified and legitimate purpose, or when the processing relevant to the purpose has been terminated. For the establishment, exercise, or defense of legal claims. For legitimate business purposes, which must be consistent with the standard followed by the applicable industry or approved by appropriate government agency, and in any case, provided by law. How about what are my responsibility when retaining personal data? As an organization that or schools that retains personal data, they are responsible for to be clear about how long you will retain personal data and its reason, to ensure quality of the data being retained, to ensure the security of the archived personal data, to ensure restricted access to personal data, and to give access and inform the data subjects about their data being retained. What does Data Privacy Act say about disposal of personal data? So, Rule 4, Section 19D, General Principle in Collection, Processing and Retention of the Implementing Rules and Regulation states that personal data shall be disposed or discarded in a secure manner that would prevent further processing, unauthorized access, or disclosure to any other party or public or prejudice the interest of the data subjects. Disposal of personal data stored off-site. Organization can engage third-party service providers to carry out the disposal of personal data under its control or custody, provided that the service provider shall contractually agree to the agency's data protection procedures and ensure that the confidentiality of personal data is protected. For the questions, what are my responsibility when disposing personal data? It is the organization's duty to make sure that the data will be disposed properly in a way that the data should be unreadable or irretrievable for digital records. The organization should categorize whether the data they have are high risk or low risk. It is recommended that the appropriate data disposal method be used. Okay, for your question, and I will entertain your question. Just simply posted your question to you just simply post your question to our chat box. Okay, and I will entertain your questions. Okay, so while there are somebody who are presenting, I will answer all your questions. So once again, thank you very much, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Melo, for your engaging talk. I am sure our audience has interesting questions too. May I invite again our audience to post their questions in the chat box for those in Zoom and comment section for those in FB Live. Thank you.
Nakamute ka, Dr. Louie. Nakamute ka po.
Okay, so I think our speaker is very much willing to accommodate our queries. No? For number one, can SUCs, LUCs, colleges, and universities process personal data or can process personal data even without the consent of the data subject? Sir?
Yes, because their school is mandated by the Republic Act, or that is for state university and local universities and colleges, no? Because the National Privacy Commission Advisory Opinion number 2017-05, no, states that a government agency having a constitutional or statutory mandate to collect and process personal data may do so even without the consent of the data subject. But this is with the concomitant responsibility of ensuring the organizational, physical, and technical security measures are in place, not to protect the personal data it is processing.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. Another question. What are the differences between Data Privacy Act and the Freedom of Information Act?
Okay, so DPA and FOI. FOI, right? Okay. So as general rule, no, information may be disclosed if requested under Freedom of Information Act. Okay. However, items of information should not be disclosed if such items will violate the data privacy rights of specific individuals.
Okay, so thank you, sir. So another question. As a student, what are the privacy do's and don'ts for online learning?
Okay, so as I stated earlier, actually, no. So when it comes to those as a student, no, you need to create a strong password when signing on e-learning platforms, no, because password should be at least 12 characters, no, containing upper and lower case letters, numbers, and if possible with symbols. Another thing na kailangan natin gawin is staying alert during online classes, especially when sharing videos, photos, and files. Okay? Using customized background to avoid accidental disclosure of personal information. That's why some like Google Meet, Zoom has a capability to change the background, right? Installing and regularly updating an antivirus program is also advisable. Muting the microphone and turning off the camera by default, especially when not speaking or reciting. And turning off the microphone and camera when leaving one station for say bathroom breaks. How about the don'ts? No? The don'ts also, as a student during online classes, no? Connecting phones, laptops, and other gadgets to free or public Wi-Fi networks. It is not advisable actually. In unavoidable circumstances, ensure that the public network has a password is not accessible to everyone. No? Sharing submissions for an unlimited time. Because when the content no longer needs to be shared, delete it. Then sending assignments, projects, and other requirements to teachers via social media. It is not advisable actually. No? Instead, send it through email or through a social media platform or through a LMS, no? LMS platform. Spamming the chat, of course, during your online class, and giving out online links and their password to people who shouldn't not be in the class. I think that's it.
Okay. So for my fourth question, how can
Marami
one...
ba yan, Doc?
This will be my last question, sir. How can one minimize the risk, security incidents, or personal data breaches?
Again, ma'am.
How can one minimize the risk, security incidents, or personal data breaches?
Okay. So I think that actually we have, as I discussed earlier, no, when it comes to on how we'll be able to minimize the risk, no. Number one, of course, you need to create a data breach response team, as I mentioned a while ago, no, where each member has a specific role. No, we need to identify different rules, implement measures and policies, no, that prevent or minimize security incidents. It is always advisable, especially if you have 1,000 or more, no, data subjects, to designate a data protection officer is also one. Conduct a privacy impact assessment, no? Train personnel to identify, assess, mitigate, and report security incidents or personal data breaches. No? Regularly monitor for security breaches and scan in vulnerability of computer networks. It's also the best one. You can drop an incident response, of course, plan a mitigation method, ensure compliance with the Data Privacy Act, of course, and conduct a self-audit plan and formulate data retention and data redundancy or data destruction policy, and regular update, no, backup of restoration systems to reference and comparison of personal data.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Melo. So for those questions po na hindi natin na-accommodate today, you can directly message our DPO officer. Will that be fine, sir? If
yes,
they
no
directly message you so that they will be enlightened also.
Yes,
Thank
madam.
you so much.
Thank you.
So that would be all for our Q&A. Thank you.
Madam, picture daw po.
Okay po.
Sa lahat ng nasa Zoom.
Wait lang po.
Baka pwedeng paki-open yung mga camera.
Oo nga po. Can you please open your camera? So we may be able to have a photo op. Photo op talaga. Okay. So thank you very much for gracing our invitation for the photo op. Okay. Thank you po.
One more.
Okay. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
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 Isa pa, pasali ako.
Opo
Ay,
nga.
sige.
Sorry po. 1, 2, 3.
Nag-take ka, mama. No?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay po, Ma'am Michelle.
Okay, we will proceed with the awarding of certificate.
Opo.
Thank you, dear participants, for your queries. In order for you to receive your e-certificate, Kindly answer our evaluation form, which is posted on our chat box and comment section. Your e-certificate will then be sent to you upon filling out our feedback form. Please note that for security purposes, this evaluation link will only be available for an hour after this series. Only members who submitted the evaluation form will be given the certificates. If you are not yet a member, membership fee is only 50 pesos for this academic year only. Kindly coordinate with your respective faculty advisors. Before we end this session, we would like to recognize the valuable inputs of our speaker by awarding our e-certificate. Let me read the citations. Integrated Southern Tagalog Association of Information Technology Education awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Marmelo V. Abante for having been the resource speaker in the 5th iSITE webinar with the topic Data Privacy Awareness for Academic Setting on January 23, 2021, given this 23rd day of January 2021 via Zoom. Signed, Rosalie B. Alday, the iSITE President. We would like to invite you once again in our 6th webinar series, which is on January 30, 2021 at 4 p.m. with yours truly, Dr. Luisa P. Makatangay, with the topic Internet of Things or IoT. Thank you, everyone. See you again remotely in the next series. Stay safe and have a good day. Bye.
iSITE is an organization for IT students formed by the deans from 8 different universities in Region 4A, Calabarzon, Philippines, to boost the IT skills of students from more than 200 universities, offering IT education programs such as computer science, information technology, information systems, and computer engineering. iSITE is the only recognized organization by the Commission on Higher Education in the field of IT education in the region. Its event is always a much-awaited one, since full of speakers are coming from relevant industries in the field and well-known academicians in the country. In order to address the need for knowledge of students from the very fast-changing technology, iSITE conducted 2 to 3 conferences and seminars in a year, and the annual iSITE Regional Research Conference and Presentation, IT Education, IRR Site, and IT competitions endorsed by the Philippine Commission on Higher Education. As such, iSITE was able to achieve its objectives in a matter of 5 years after its foundation. Most importantly, not only the students benefited, but also the universities and schools in the region. The program helped a lot of schools and students in terms of providing them with the latest seminars and trainings in various emerging topics in ITE. They have been exposed to people in the industry for networking and linkages, and even IT skill certifications. Students as well as faculty member advisors were able to see the latest gadgets and devices, such as drones and robots in advance when they participate in every event. They were able to learn about the research outputs of various school student participants. Faculty members were able to interact and share best practices with each other. Aside from fun, excitement, and prizes, students' outstanding skills in programming, creativity, and research presentations were recognized and showcased. Above all, sharing and collaborations have been developed, and self-confidence of students were proven to assist them in their future career after graduation. As there is a need to further supplement learning of many students in a third world country like the Philippines, especially that the field of IT is a fast-changing technology, IT Students Capacity Building Program was implemented to address the need. Most schools and universities in the regional part of the country need to have state-of-the-art facilities and laboratories at par to at least our neighboring ASEAN countries. Schools offering information technology education (ITE) programs are striving to keep its curriculum up to date, facilities upgraded, and learning support resources provided to all its students. However, not all schools and universities in the region can provide the needed learning resources to students, as well as linkages to relevant industries of the programs. Hence, iSITE, integrated Southern Tagalog Information Technology Education to develop this program. To date, there are more than 2,000 student members and 80 higher educational institutions as institutional members in the region. This program provided industry-aligned and timely seminars, trainings, and conferences to students taking ITE programs in the region, addressing the needs of universities as well as the needs of many small schools in the region. Big schools and universities, and those with higher level of accreditation, local and international, and Center of Development and Excellence in IT Education, are extending their resources and facilities to help other schools through the program. In addition, it also promotes a research sharing and collaborations by allowing students to present their theses and capstone as research outputs to other students from various universities for utilization and potential commercialization. Also, the seminars and trainings provided by experts in the industry develop the IT skills of the students that equip them to compete in several programming and IT skills competition in the regional and national levels.
Hello, i-plus again po the evaluation form. Kindly screenshot or take the picture of the QR code. So with that, goodbye everyone. Thank you for attending. May we ask the participants to kindly leave so that we can have a short meeting with the officers. Thank you. Ito po.